Looking good. Looking strong. All right. Welcome back. This is an episode of The Green Room. We're going to talk about bombing, or eating shit, as we say sometimes. It is a universal truth, or appears to be, if you talk to anyone that has been in comedy for any amount of time, that you will bomb. That every comedian bombs sometime. Every comedian eats shit sometime. And it happened. Hooray! I'm going to tell you about my experience with bombing. It happened just this last Friday. And it was very interesting to me. Horrifying, you would think, not as much as I would have thought. I don't know. Like you just like this, you get this panicked idea of like just being up on stage with all these eyes turned towards you, and you just can't remember the next line or can't remember what you're gonna say, and you're just and the lights are on you and you're just sweating and you're just like and I suck, and then you drop the mic and run off stage. But that wasn't what happened here. I guess that's a version of bombing. There's probably lots of versions of bombing we could talk about. But my experience was I actually delivered all my material fine. I didn't really have any problems with searching for lines or remembering what was next or anything. This was just the wrong setup, basically. And that's on me, at least partly. But, you know, in another one of these episodes, we're going to talk about the challenge of getting past open mics and why you need to have like how you get past just being stuck in open mics and getting onto larger venues and more crowds and things like that. But in my attempt to do that here, one of the first things I did was set up a performance at a local bar, like 10 minutes away in this little town. And I had talked to the owner and basically just said, like, listen, I need a place to work out, so to speak, like for my comedy, right? I need a place to try out new material, get in front of people and see what works and what doesn't. And he'd been doing, like, they have every Friday night or they'd had a regular karaoke, and so they have like a setup, right? And the first night that I was going to go there, they were having this like big thing. And he was like, yeah, come. Well, during the intermission of the karaoke championship, you'll have like 25, 30 minutes. Get up. It'll be great. There are tons of people. And I was like, sweet. Yeah, that sounds perfect. So I show up. The place is packed, like packed. Standing room, not even. Like it was difficult to find standing room. And like, I want to say he chickened out. That's probably the wrong way of characterizing it. Because from a business standpoint, he probably made the right call. When the time came, like when I got there, he was just like, oh, I don't know, it's too loud. There's too many people here. I don't think this is going to work out. And I don't blame him. Hear me out here for sort of going back on putting me up that night. Because he'd never heard my comedy. We'd literally just met. He'd never heard my act or my bits, so he doesn't know whether I'm any good. And without knowing that, for him to put me in front of 80 or 90 or 100 people, without vetting my act, if I were to get up and do really awful, then yeah, like all those people would probably be pissed at him. Like, dude, did you not check this guy out? Like, what's the matter with you? And, you know, whatever, all of that. Like, there are consequences. So I don't blame him for kind of coming around to that position, being like, ooh, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have told you to come tonight. Let's try another night when there's less people here and I can sort of get to know your comedy, so to speak. Because like at that point, I didn't even have business cards yet so that he could go look at my stuff online. So anyways, I came back last week, and where there were 80, 100 people, something like that, maybe it was 50, I don't know, but the place was jam-packed. There were like 5. So the moment we walked in the door, I turned to Annie. I mean, maybe not the moment, but like shortly after we got in there, I just turned to Annie and I was like, because she came with me this time, I was just like, I don't want to do this. And it wasn't just that it was a small audience. and it's not, this isn't just an ego thing. I know this sounds like an ego thing, like I don't want to give my act for just 5 people. There is actually and anyone who's performed or especially done comedy in front of a group will tell you that it's a lot harder to win over 5 people than it is to win over 50 people or 100 people. And part of that is that there's a natural FOMO reaction when it comes to listening to comedy, which is that, like, if one person laughs at a joke, everybody's going to laugh at the joke. Nobody wants to be the person that doesn't get it. And so there's definitely advantages to having a larger crowd. You can see who's getting your comedy and who's not, and try to address more to that part, or work with that part of the audience. Or, you just working with like 3 people, you don't have enough of a sample size to really even know whether what you said is funny or whether people just didn't get it because they just didn't get it for any number of reasons. So the audience size matters, and it was just too small. Another thing was that the setup, like the actual setup of the room, was really awful. The bar itself had the karaoke at one side, sort of picture like a long, skinny room. It was all the way at one side, and then everyone was sitting at the bar. There was nobody at the tables. Literally everybody was at the bar, like basically with their back turned towards me already. And that was another reason why I was like, oh, this is going to go poorly. Even after we got started, the AV, basically the microphone that they first handed me was having feedback issues. So it was like killed the momentum at the very beginning when you're like, hey, who's ready for comedy? And it's like, and then you're like, okay, hang on. Gonna switch out the mic here. You just totally lose all momentum. Whatever little bit of excitement there was, and there was not. And part of that too, one of the next things is that nobody was there for comedy. There is a real benefit, even with a small audience in a comedy club, like for an open mic night, if there might only be 10 or 15 people there, but those people are there to see comedy. They want to laugh. And that makes a big difference in the audience too. There'd been no marketing. The owner of this bar hadn't said anything to anyone, as far as I know, to let anyone know there was going to be a comedian in that night. So this was just like, these people were there at the end of a hard week to just drink and tell stories with each other and just quietly enjoy a night out. They were not expecting comedy. So to interrupt the music and be like, hey, I'm going to tell jokes now to these people sitting along a bar with their back towards you, these 5 people, surprise, it was difficult. It did not go well. And then to have the AV stuff at the beginning too. So, and then there were maybe the last way in which we were mismatched in this occasion was that the audience was probably not my audience. And I don't know how to delicately say this. Annie was trying to say it to me on our way home, and she had a hard time delicately saying it too. Some of my comedy has a certain amount of intellectual requirement, shall we say? Like when I got to the bit where I said, what's the line? Urinals have these little dividers. The dividers are just big enough so that if you leave the requisite amount of space between you and the urinal to prevent the transmission of syphilis, right? Like, whatever. I could tell in saying that sentence, like, there were enough big words in it that they were like 5 seconds behind me. Like, this audience was still catching up, going like, have I had too much to drink or not enough? Because I'm not getting this. And there's big words and anyways, God, I'm going to get in trouble if I really follow some of these thoughts. But they could also tell just when I got up that I didn't belong in this bar, right? Like, I was wearing a collared shirt. Granted, I was in sandals and cargo shorts too. It's like 45 degrees, so that's fair in the Midwest. But I was the only person in this bar that wasn't wearing faded jeans and shit-covered boots and 3 John Deere logos on them. So the moment they saw me, these people were like, that guy's not one of us. So, yeah, it didn't go great. I did have new material that, at least at this point on my channel, is probably not out there yet. but I didn't give it to them. I got up. I started in on some things that you guys have already heard. I think I started with the salted caramel bit, then went into the Russian Snake Island bit, and then went into the urinal bit. And at the end of that, I was like 25 minutes in, and I just said, you know what? Like I called it there. I was like, this is not going well, but I've done what I said I was going to do for this bar owner, which was give him 20, 25 minutes. And I was like, it's good enough. I'm going to pack it up and go home. There were many, many times where I wanted to quit before that. I frankly didn't want to go up at all because I just knew this was not going to go well. But I did, and I didn't struggle with my material. I just delivered it as if I were delivering it still to the camera. And it was good practice to some extent. Like I did try and engage the audience a little bit. There was some, maybe one or two light heckles, but for the most part, they were just disengaged. And it did not feel good. I'll tell you that. But everybody goes through it. Now I have. So there are lessons to be learned from that, specifically around the kinds of gigs that I'm going to try and set up now. You know, I had sort of gone into it with this assumption, clearly false assumption, incorrect assumption, that just put me in front of people and I'll get a chance to work out my material. And but this was not like nobody was really even listening. So it's too bad. And I'm positive that a more experienced comic would have been able to figure it out and do better than I did. I'm just not that experienced a comic yet. So it takes things like these to eventually be able to handle those situations better, I suppose. Oh, well. Build character, I guess. So that's bombing. Hopefully that's it now. I'm just like, yep, did it. Done, out of the way. Never going to bomb again. And if anyone has experience that, they're probably laughing and going, yeah, right. No, that wasn't even a proper bomb, Matt. Well, yeah. As always, thanks for listening.